Alright folks, what is up? This is One Big Bug and I'm coming at you with something different today. This is the commemorative video that I said I was going to make um, marking my 1 year anniversary in EVE. By the time this video goes up, it'll be 1 year that I've been playing EVE. And to commemorate that point, I'm going to take a trip to the memorial to where the largest battle on Singularity has ever taken place, and that is the battle that got me interested in EVE again, and that's the Battle of B-R5RB. EVE is a unique game, which I will talk about as we get going. EVE is also a very dangerous but very fun game, and it took a lot for me to get into it. For safety reasons, I am not starting in my home system. I am starting actually a fair distance away from my home system. I am also only running with a bare minimum channel open, and that is the local channel. That's the channel that reveals who's in system of the area that I'm in. Now, if I can figure out how to do it, I will actually be blurring that section out. Because it's even better that I try not to show that. Yes, EVE is something of a game like that, where if you put out any information that anyone can use, even in the smallest detail, it will get used. So it helps to try and take as much precaution as possible. Again, that's why I'm not starting in my home system. So this is 48 jumps from where I am, roughly. So this is going to be quite a travel. We're going to be going through a lot of hostile space and a lot of safe space. To deal with the hostile space, I'll be flying a very special ship in EVE. Now, I say very special. That's only because of what you put on it. But it's an interceptor. Now, I know you can't see it right now. It's because I'm zoomed out far enough that you can't actually see it. I'm about to zoom into it in a moment. But it's a very special ship. In terms of what it can do and how it travels. Alright, so let's take a look at my little ship here. There we go. This ship in the game is known as a Tyrannus. It is a Galante interceptor. All interceptors are unique in the fact of how fast they can travel. They're the fastest warping ships in the game at base warp speed. You can get other ships to warp really fast by putting certain modules on them, and they will actually warp at a faster speed. But an interceptor warps at the fastest base speed of 8 AU. And that's astronomical units, I believe that stands for. Where the next fastest ship warps at about 5. So they're very, very fast. They're also almost impossible to catch because they are what's known as warp bubble immune. Warp bubbles are just these big spheres in space that do not allow you to warp through them, and it does not allow you to initiate warp if you're in them. They can also drag you past where you want to go and force you to be quite a distance away from the gate that you want to go through, and also there cause you a lot of trouble. Well, interceptors are immune to that, so I don't have to worry about that. And my ship is fitted in what's known as a taxi fit. It has no offense. It has almost no defense. It's basically made for speed and alignment. It's made to get into warp speed as quickly as possible. I see the inertia modifier here. So this ship is basically made to get into warp in less than 2 seconds. And in truth, it does it in about 1.5 seconds. That means it should be fast enough to avoid what's in the game known as insta-lockers, and that are ships that are made to lock within 2 seconds. So hopefully we can avoid that. So in terms of traveling in EVE, it is one of the safest ships you can travel in, but do not get that wrong should you ever play this game. There is no such thing as safe in EVE in terms for your ship unless you are like docked up in a station. That's the only way your ship and you will actually be safe. And even then, you never know what could happen. So with that being said, let's get this show on the road because this is going to be a long trip. Now, some people might be seeing me use the radial menu, and that is what I commonly use to just jump through gates. I find it easier to use the radial menu for a few things, and I find it easier to use the right-click pop-up bar menu here. So what is Eve? Well, Eve is a very, very unique it's a very unique game in terms of MMO. It's internet spaceships, basically, and it's the only video game I know of right now that's really popular in terms of spaceships and whatnot. I can't even think of another one right now except for the one that's being made. That big Kickstarter one, whose name I actually can't remember. It was Star Citizen. That's right, Star Citizen. Eve is actually an MMO that's as old as Warcraft. It basically is 10 years old, and it's heading to 11, much like Warcraft. So it's actually a very old game. I've only been playing for 1 year of that. And a lot of things have changed in Eve since the beginning, and a lot of those things have also come as I've been playing. Just within the past year, there's been a massive amount of changes. The most of the changes I'm getting are visually, and to help make Eve a little bit easier and a little bit more balanced in terms of gameplay. Eve is a very difficult game to get into. It really is. It's a very tough game to get into in every respect. The tutorials can be difficult. You come into the game with expectations of other space games, and they don't apply here. CCP, the creators of Eve, are trying to make the game easier and more accessible for new players. But even then, the game's always going to remain difficult. Matter of fact, there's a graph, and if I find it, maybe I'll show it up on the screen. The difficulty curve for different MMOs, and they each slant, pretty evenly going up. One's a little bit difficult, a little bit more difficult than the other, and then there's Eve, which curves up. Curves almost straight up and then turns into a cliff upside down. When the cliff's upside down, you see like bodies, not stick figure bodies, impaled on spears hanging from the cliff, and there's a bulldozer that's pushing a bunch of dead bodies away, and that's basically Eve in a nutshell. It really is. Eve is also unique in that there is no such thing as endgame content in Eve. There is PvE elements in it, but the majority of things to do in Eve tend to be more PvP orientated, and I'm not sure why that is. Well, actually, I know a little bit why. It can be quite exhilarating, but it's also very, very difficult to get into, because becoming a skilled pilot in Eve is difficult, because you're going up against people that have been in the game for many years. And that's just how things happen. Let's see. Right now I'm passing through a system where there's actually one hostile in system. Even if there were half a dozen or 2 dozen or 5 dozen, I wouldn't be overly worried. Again, my ship gives me some freedom of movement around the high-sec systems. You can see Eve's a very beautiful game. You get that nebula in the background and whatnot. It's extremely beautiful. And once you get into it and you start learning, it becomes a lot of fun. Yeah. Now I'm in a really tough area. But again, I expected this. I really expected this. And Eve is definitely to scale in this game. It really is to scale. I'll go back to the playing in a little bit. To travel from point A to point B in Eve will take you a long time. Varying ships travel at varying speeds. So two ships can start at warp at the same time, and they'll end up in the same place at different times because of how fast they travel and how fast they get into warp. The larger the ship, the slower it goes, and the slower it gets into warp. If you were to try and fly slowly from one gate to another that was just a mere 10 AU, you would be there for months, year, I don't know for sure. But you wouldn't make it in a day. You wouldn't make it in 2 days. Even in the fastest moving ship, you wouldn't. I mean, to give you an idea, let's watch my current speed. This is meters, kilometers, and then I hit AU. And you saw there I was up over 100, I was up over 1,000,000 kilometers a second. So this is incredibly fast travel. So the systems are definitely to scale in this game. This is not a game where you can just slow fly your ship, or what in EVE is called slow boating, even if you wanted to. Right? That's just not going to happen. Now, back to the player aspects of the game. As I said before, EVE is a no-end content game. The player creates the end content. There are various things to do in EVE, such as building, researching. You can play the market, not like a stock market, the sales market, buying and selling products, which is a unique beast in and of itself, which I'll talk about in a little bit. You can buy and sell on the market. You can become a miner. You can run missions. You can do what's known as ratting and combat complexes, or you can do PvP aspects of the game, fighting other people. There's quite a variety of things to do, and it just comes down to what you want to do and, you know, what you consider fun. Like, I used to love mining. I really did. And I honestly thought that a character I had created would become a miner. But I got into ratting, and that became so much more interesting and fun for me that I converted, you know, my miner into a ratting ship, and I converted my PvPer into some ratting skills so that I can run 2 ratters at the same time. But all I can say for EVE is sure is you have as much fun out of EVE as you put effort into. And I find that to be more and more true every day that I play, even after a year. Now, I got into EVE because I read about this battle. And the interesting thing about the battle for EVE is that EVE in-game items, every in-game item in EVE can actually be assigned a real world value. And we've entered new space. You can tell because the color has changed. We were in what might have been a Minmatar section of space, or an NPC section of space that you know, may have had Minmatar ties, and now we're in a section of space that looks like it may be, I don't know, with Caldari, I guess. Maybe we've been traveling through Caldari or pirate Caldari space. Oh yeah, we're still in Caldari style space. The pirates at the gate were Garistas. Pirates, the red crosses that you see, are NPCs. Alright, now we are actually in Minmatar space. The gate is a dead giveaway. And I'll talk about that a little bit more after. I actually like Minmatar space. I think it's probably the most beautiful out of all. The red and yellow hues, and it's all over, you know, that's Minmatar space. Minmatar is basically red. But yeah, I got into EVE because of this battle of, basically I'm going to short it down to what everyone else calls it, and that's B-TAC-R. Yeah, the Battle of B-TAC-R. That's just floating debris. Yeah, no big deal. And to be honest, I actually started getting into Eve before that, but I couldn't get over the entrance level. I just found the game too difficult. I didn't understand much, and it wasn't what I expected. And I ended up dropping out of the game. I didn't even last a full day, I think. So I leave Eve for a while, and then I hear of this battle of B-R5RB. And I find it to be fascinating. My interest in Eve kind of peaks again. This time I know a little bit more about Eve, and I know a little bit more what to expect, so I decided to try it one more time. So I go to Eve, and I start playing. I go through the tutorial, and I actually get through the tutorial. And after that, I know that I need to find a group of people that can help teach me about the game. So I remember hearing about this group that was on Reddit, and there were a bunch of Eve subreddits, and I remember hearing about this one group, but I didn't remember their name. So I posted on the Eve subreddit that I'm a new player looking to get in, and I'm wondering who's a good corporation to join. And then finally the name came across, although several names were thrown my way. Brave Newbies being one that I remember. There were a couple other ones, but the one that I ended up joining is the one that I remembered. For some reason, part of what they're known as, what they're called as, is Dreadit, but in-game they're known as Test. The full name is Test Alliance. Please ignore. It's a little bit of humor there. But lost my train of thought for a second. Yeah, I joined Test Alliance because that's the one I remember hearing about. Now, when I joined Test had actually kind of fallen from grace. They were in a good position, they were gaining power, they got involved in something over their heads, and they kind of got beat down and had suffered quite a bit. Not terribly, but quite a bit. So I had joined them in that time, and we were staging out of a system known as SOCT. Now, I have to admit, if it had not been for the Test Alliance, I would have quit Eve again. Because there's just so much in this game you need to learn. It's not like Warcraft, it's not like EverQuest, it's not like any MMO out there whatsoever. It's really not. So, Test not only helped teach me, the people in Test helped teach me, but Test had a program known as, well, I call it the Town Saver program, because that's generally what the one guy that ran the entire program's name was Town Saver. And basically he manufactured all of these ships. He manufactured frigates, destroyers, and one set of what's known as logistical cruisers. And they got given out free to new players, and actually pretty much to anybody who wanted them. But mostly new players, to just fly. And these were a wide variety of ships that he put together. So this allowed you to continue flying, to get blown up, and to keep enjoying the game without suffering too much of an impact. So that's what I did, and I started learning to fly, and I learned the very, 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 very basics of the game, because you can't even say you've learned the basics of the game until you've been in the game a long time, maybe even longer than I've been in the game. So we must be in high sec, I would think. think. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a sec. Fast forward a little while, just a couple of months, and Test joins with a group that I had mentioned earlier, Brave Newbies, as well as several other groups, to form a coalition known as Hero. And we all moved to a low-sec system. It's a low-security system, known as Zendaya. And we staged out of there for a while. And it was quite a lot of fun, to be honest. But given time, there were just things about Test that I started not liking. And it wasn't anything to do with the corporation itself. Yeah, they're not called guilds in EVE. They're called corporations. You're not part of a guild, you're part of a corporation. Part of a coalition, part of an alliance. Just certain people and certain things that went on that just kind of grated me the wrong way. So at that point, I decided to move from Test to Brave Newbies. Brave Newbies was a wild bunch. Very gung-ho, very battle-centered, very, we'll fight you, we don't care what you have, because we want to have fun. And they still kind of hold that to this day, although they're a little bit more serious than what they were. Through this time, I started learning more, and I started making more ISK, money, and that's the game currency ISK. And as I started making ISK, I started buying my own ships, started spending a little more, started getting a little more trained, a little more balanced, and I also, by this time, had created interesting. I also started a second account, and that second account was my moneymaker account. Now, I chose what a lot of people consider the most boring and the most tedious way to make money. That's an Amar battleship in the background, by the way. It's an NPC battleship, but it's still an Amar battleship. I chose mining. Mining is a very deadhead way to make money. You set your ship at a spot, or you orbit an asteroid, you shoot lasers at it, and then you just spin around it while shooting lasers at it, mining it. So, despite the fact that it was tedious to a lot of people, I actually enjoyed it. I found it relaxing. It was almost a Zen-like experience, kind of like Euro Truck. There was just something very calming about it. So, as I started making money there, I started realizing, and I started getting that EVE kind of mentality started setting in on me, that I could make more money better if I had another account that could haul the ore that I'm mining, so I don't have to keep pulling my mining ship out of the belt, going to a station and dropping it off to sell, or selling it directly, and then having to fly back out to the mining belt. It also meant that I had to mine in a system that had a space station. Because if I mined in a system that did not have a space station, then things would, be even worse. I would have to travel through the gate and come back and waste even more time. So within another month of this, I had opened up a third account. This third account was basically made just to be a hauler. I was thinking about getting a freighter, a really big ship to move stuff around in. I was thinking about getting an Orca, which is a ship that helps boost the abilities of other mining ships, as well as can haul ore. All kinds of plans that I had made. Um, but mostly it was just to start hauling in a small ore hauling ship in the game called Miasmos, so that I could leave my miner in a belt and just mine and not have to leave. And actually I did start making even more IS. It kind of got to the point where I would run my miner, would do what they call AFK mining in high sec. I would run my miner, in the background, let him mine, and I keep my Miasmos close by, and then I would switch over to that account. Oh, speaking of Zendaya, this is the system here that my corporation at the time, Brave Newbies, was staged out of, as I told you, Zendaya. And we are actually going through that now. Or we will be. We're about to jump into Zendaya. So I'd leave them mining in the background. I'd be doing stuff on my main account, then I'd come back, drop the ore, pick it up into the Miasmos, and then keep going. I don't even think... I mean, yeah, I could go to the station here, the Concord Bureau, Zendaya. That's Zendaya Planet 5. That's not just Zendaya 5, the Zendaya Planet 5. I could go to the station and take a look, but I don't want to. I'd be more worried about getting caught, so we're just going to continue on through Doril. Anyways, as it went... I started getting better at mining, and something interesting had happened. The coalition I was in, Hero, got the chance to take what's known as sovereignty. Sovereignty is being able to technically own an area of space in what's known as nullsec. Now, to really explain this, I've got to explain the differences in secs. There's 3 different security systems, and their numbers range from, I believe, -1 to +1. So you have +1, 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 6, 5, 4, going on and on and on. All right, you see in the background back here real quick? That's a warp bubble I told about. Those are the things that will really screw your ship over if you get caught in them. Now, high sec is the most secure area of space. It's the most protective. But that does not mean it's safe. Hang on 1 second, please. Apologize, I had to check on my wife real quick, so I just decided to let my ship warp while I did that. High sec is the most secure area of space, and high sec is from 1.0 to 0.5. And the difference is how fast it takes for the NPC police force, known as Concord, to respond and blow up the person that's doing what they're not supposed to, which usually it revolves around shooting somebody else. Yeah, in high sec, unless you're at war with another target or another target is suspect of a crime, they cannot be shot. And if you shoot somebody who's suspect of a crime, you become suspect yourself, and then somebody can shoot you. Those are the only 2 ways to not get yourself what they call concorded, blown up by the NPC police. Then there's low sec. Low sec is 0.4, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1. Difference in low sec is there is no rule about shooting anyone. You can shoot anyone you want at any time, and Concord will not bother you. However, there are in low sec, there are sentry guns both on stations and on warp gates, the things that we're jumping through right now, these things here. And those sentry guns will attack you. And sentry guns can actually do quite a lot of damage. It's real simple. It can do quite a lot of damage. Especially to smaller ships, which tend to be more popular to be used. But that's kind of it. Beyond that, let's see. There's nullsec, and in nullsec, which is what we're traveling through right now, there are no rules. Anything goes. Anything at all. Now, this bit more slight difference, such as in high sec, no capital ships can go into high sec, except for some reason Orca is considered I think a capital ship, and I have no idea why. But other than that, no other capital ships. Carriers, super carriers, Titans, and things like that cannot go into high sec. Any capital ships that you see in high sec were already there when the rule was implemented that capitals cannot be in high sec. And the only reason they're there is because basically they've promised not to ever use their capital ships for battle. So you can find a few capital ships in high sec if you're lucky, but you cannot fly a capital ship there. In high sec and in low sec, you will not find warp bubbles. There, nobody can place warp bubbles, and you do not have to face bombers, because there's no bombing in low sec or high sec, only in null sec. Null sec can be owned by players. Low sec and high sec cannot. And not all of null sec can be owned by players. Some of null sec is what they call NPC null sec. They're owned by pirate factions and whatnot. So those are the general differences. High sec is safest. Low sec is kind of like pirate country with a few rules, but pretty much anything goes. And then you have nullsec, where it's it's the wasteland. There's no rules. Anything goes. You can do whatever the hell you want with whatever the hell you want, and that's that. And we're traveling through all three different types. We're traveling through low sec, high sec, and null sec. And actually, we're getting pretty close to our destination. So we're all null sec now. As I was saying earlier, my corporation had a chance to take sovereignty. And to be honest, they were allowed to. An alliance that held sovereignty just kind of fell apart. This has happened to them before. And my corporation was urged to come in and take the area for themselves. And thus began my experience with nullsec. And from then on, I've never left, because nullsec is a lot more fun to be in, and there's a lot more profit to be made in nullsec versus anywhere else. I moved my miners into a nullsec corporation, although it didn't work out very well because of conflicts of interest, supposedly, even though I didn't have none, because it was found out that one of my people was in one corporation while my miners were in another, and those two corporations were kind of at odds with each other. I got kicked out of the one that my miners were in, which is fine. I wandered for a while, and I finally found a home with the corporation that I'm in now. So much so that I actually took my main account from Brave Newbies and from Heroes, thanking them for all that they had done for me to keep me in EVE and to teach me and to allow me to learn as much as I do, and to learn as much as I know now, which, to be honest, in the scope of EVE is still very little. I'm still asking questions to this day. How do you do this? What about that? Trust me. There's still a lot more to go. But I moved my main account to that same home. So it became the first time ever, and this may have been about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit less, Not even 6 months. Maybe 4, 5. Anyways. It became the first time that all 3 of my characters were in the same corporation at the same time, which I thought was really cool. As a matter of fact, here's our destination. This is not the end of the video, by the way. I want to go to the system. I want to go to the memorial site. Hopefully, not get myself blown up. I'm doing this in what should be a more off time in EVE. Kind of an in-between time of European and US time zones. But I've been in that same corporation since then, up to this point. I'm not sure, unless this is it. Oh yeah, this is. You're entering the Graveyard of the Titans, a silent memorial to one of the grandest, most violent, most cataclysmic battles New Eden has ever witnessed to. Halt your ship, Capsuleer, and take a moment out of the mad swirl of your life to ponder your own impending deaths. Doesn't that sound fun? But yes, here we are. The Graveyard of Titans. Supercarriers. There were a lot more than this. This is just what CCP has decided to... Dreadnoughts. This is the wrecks that CCP decided to put here to memorialize this. Now, the problem is I don't have a better cloak than improved, which means that my speed is fairly limited. There is somebody hostile in system. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm here to memorialize this, and if I get blown up in doing so, I get blown up in doing so. So you're going to see a lot of the same wrecks around here. That wreck down there, yeah, it's an Amar Titan. Titans are the largest ships in the game by far. I believe that's a... I don't know if it'll allow me to click on it. What we got here? This is an Amar carrier. So this is an Archon. This is Avatar. That is a Galante Dreadnought. So that is a Morose. This is the Amar Dreadnought. So that is... I always forget the name of the Amari one, and I really apologize. Revelation. I believe it's a... Revelation? I think it's called a Revelation. This here is the Minmatar Dreadnought, and probably the most unique ship in the game. The Naglfar. They're called the Naglfar. And the reason it's so unique is you can see here it's actually a vertical ship. I'm going to give you a idea of scope. Now remember, this ship is actually destroyed, so that there's not as much top and bottom as there should be, because it's actually broken off. But still, to give you an idea of how big this ship is, and this is not the largest ship in the game, to my ship, you know, can't see my ship anymore, but can still clearly see the Minmatar Dreadnought. This ship is just unbelievably massive. And like I said, I feel it's the most unique ship in the game because it is vertical versus horizontal. This ship is the Galante Titan, known as the Erebus. The Erebus is the second most popular Titan in the game, I believe. Second to the Avatar, which tends to be the most popular. And Titans are truly massive ships. They're unbelievably massive mountains of machines. They dwarf any and everything in the game, including dreadnoughts and supercarriers. The idea of scale in EVE is just truly fascinating. This is the Minmatar Titan this way, the Ragnarok. It is as it goes, where the Minmatar Dreadnought is the tallest ship because it's vertical. The Minmatar Titan is the longest. It's not as wide, it's not as thick, it's not as massive looking, but it is intensely long, and I really do believe it is the longest ship in the game. And again, it's just truly, truly, truly colossal. It's an absolutely amazing ship. It's probably my favorite Titan, to be honest. If I were ever able to have a character fly a Titan, it would probably be a Ragnarok. Just because I just feel that, again, they're the most unique ships in the game. And then we're going to come over here and take a closer look at this avatar. So there's two more avatars up here. That's another Erebus over there. Strange. Now, there are 4 races in the game. And when this battle took place, the Kaldari ships were not really very good versus the other ships. So that's why there's a lack of Kaldari wrecks out here, because there weren't any Kaldari ships involved in the battle. Just Galante, Amar, and Minmatar. So the Avatar is probably the most recognizable ship in the game. And I wish I could show you a fully intact one, because they really are beautiful, beautiful ships. And sadly, I can't. To even get near a Titan is basically just to invite death on yourself, not from the Titan itself. The Titan, even if I stood still, would probably not be able to hit my little frigate. But it's still very dangerous, because they're usually protected in things known as posses. As we come across the front of this monster, just look at how huge this thing is. I don't know why I started locking it, but I can't stop trying to lock it. So you're gonna have to put up with that for a little bit. You know, stop. That's not what I was going for. I meant to slow my speed down. Keep myself very slow. You really can't go inside. I mean, I could go in a little bit, but you know, this again. Talk about, you know, into the belly of the beast. Yeah. How terrifying is this? You know. How impressive. I wish I'd stop doing that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just trying to turn myself around and then do like this. Inside the mouth of the Leviathan. You know, was one of the reasons the Amar Titan is so recognizable among many, is that it actually looks like it has a face on the front. And it's just really an imposing ship. Any Titan is an imposing ship. But of all the Titans, the Amar ship is probably the most imposing looking, the most impressive looking. Followed by the Erebus. And then you could toss up between which one you like more. The Leviathan, which, sadly, there's no Leviathan here for me to show you, or the Ragnarok. And I personally like the Ragnarok over everything. But that's just not going to happen. And this is the reason I am in EVE today, because this battle took place. And there are a lot of people who got involved in this battle. Another Minmatar Titan wreck up there. I didn't know that. The Amar Dreadnought, the Revelation, Minmatar Dreadnought. There's the Galante Dreadnought, the Morose. I want to fly by a couple more ships, and then I'll call this. You know, EVE is a unique game, as I said, because everything can be put into a real-world value. And that's probably the most unique thing about EVE. And that is because EVE has in it something called a Plex. And Plexes can be bought for real-world money, $20 each. Plexes can also be sold and bought in-game for in-game currency. And Plexes allow you to add time to your game. It's like getting, an extra 30 days. So you can play EVE. You can play EVE without spending a penny. If I chose to, if I wanted to right now, I could buy Plexes from now on for the rest of my 3 accounts and never have to pay another penny to play this game. Because I make enough money every month to buy 3 Plexes and still come out with a profit at the end of the month. That I don't have to pay real world cash. Plexes go for about 800 million, a little bit more than 800 million each right now. So that would be 2 point something. I mean, if we just go flat 800, let's just say I get lucky, or even 850, that's still 1.7 billion for 2, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 10. So we're at 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Be about 3.5, 3.6 billion ISK. I make roughly 2.5 billion ISK a week. So it'd be a week and a half's worth of work, and then the other rest of the time, the other 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, would be profit. So that'd be 2, 4, 5, around 5.5 billion a month profit that I would make. So you can, at some point, once you get far enough, I'm looking for the last wreck I want to fly by. Is that a... Oh no, that's part of the Titan. I'm surprised. Okay, there it is. I'm going to go this way. Full speed it up. Because I'm noticing a lack of super carriers out here. I thought for sure I'd see super carriers out here rather than just dreads and carriers. I thought there'd be a super carrier wreck somewhere. But all I see is the Titans, dreadnoughts, and the regular carriers. Huh. Oh well. Been nice to have seen a super carrier. But it's okay. So how they figure out how much something the in-game is worth is they compare it to Plex. How many Plexes could you buy with the amount of money that you lost? And that's how you assign real-world value. And some of the most expensive Titans in the game cost upwards of $3,000. So it's very expensive, and that's why Titans are very coveted. And for Titans to be involved in a battle, especially one of this importance, gives you an idea of just how important it really was. It's just truly, truly phenomenal what was committed to this battle overall. As we pass over the Archon carrier here, you'll notice that the only carriers that are out here are Archons. It's because Archons are probably the best carriers for battle in terms of triage, healing other large ships, and I want to take one close pass at this revelation, and then we'll be done. I forget what... Oh yeah, the Archon. Even though there are other carriers in game, they're considered the best in terms of PvP. So you will rarely see a carrier outside... You'll rarely see a carrier unless it's outside of a PvP aspect that is not an Archon. But probably the most popular dreadnought is the Naglfar, although the Morose is also very popular. The least popular, I believe, is the Revelation. No, the least popular is the Phoenix. The Caldari. The Caldari ships suffer a lot. The least popular Titan, the least popular Dreadnought, and in truth, one of the least popular ship types all around. But I actually fly variations of Caldari ships, and I do enjoy them. The Caldari do have one most popular ship, and that's their T3, Tech 3 cruiser, the Tengu. The Tengu, maybe the Golem. The Golem, I think, is popular for Caldari. That is the Marauder class battleship. But beyond that, I don't quite remember if there are any other really popular Caldari ships. So sadly I can't show you any of them, and I can't show you any super carriers or other carriers, but it's still an impressive sight. I mean, you really do get the sense of scale out here. And this is just one area of battle. It's truly fascinating. I wish I could have seen the fight. You know, come out to the battlefield and just sit 100 kilometers off the battle itself, and just I'm going to put my ship into cloak. And just see the battle take place. In order for the battle to happen, the game had to go into what's known as time dilation, which means it slows everything in the game down. All the way down as far as 10%. Now 10% time dilation means that time in the game in this area is only moving at 10% its actual speed. So it goes very, very, very slowly. This allows the servers to deal with everything that's going on without exploding into a fiery death, basically, for the machine. The battle lasted like a day and a half. It lasted somewhere between like a day and a half. Just kept going. And it was truly fascinating. And some people actually recorded footage and sped it up so you could see it happen in more real time. And watching Titan Doomsday weapons go off is really interesting. Now, in terms of Doomsday weapons, they're basically as they sound. They're a very large, extremely powerful weapon that if shot at a capital ship, a dreadnought or carrier that is not prepared, they will instantly die. They do a phenomenal amount of damage. They can only be fired once every 10 minutes. So under 10% time dilation, you're looking at like an hour, almost 2 hours, around an hour and 40 minutes. In terms of doomsday weapons, the Amar and the Galante have the most impressive looking because they're both giant lasers. The Kaldari one is a flight of massive missiles, and the Minmatar one sadly kind of looks the least impressive, as it's a bunch of like artillery shots that don't look all that great compared to the other ones, but they all are very powerful and they all do very specific types of damage. In the game there's 4 different damage types: electromagnetic, EM, thermal, explosive, and kinetic. And I believe the Amar do EM, the Galante one probably does thermal, the Minmatar would do explosive, and the Kaldari would do kinetic. Now, I'm not saying that's the only damage type they do. That's just the most prevalent one they do. Like the Amar might do EM and thermal. The Galante might do thermal and kinetic, heavier on the thermal. The Kaldari might do kinetic and thermal, heavier on kinetic, and then Minmatar explosive and maybe kinetic as well, or thermal. It could be a combination. I don't know. I'm not familiar with doomsday weapons. But to be able to sit here and see those doomsday weapons actually fire, I've never actually in-game seen a doomsday weapon fired. I have seen Titans. I've seen, intact, in-space Titans. The only Titan I haven't seen is the Leviathan because they're the least popular. You hardly ever see them around, but they do exist. So I've seen that, but I've never seen a doomsday weapon fired. And if I ever do, I hope it's not aimed at my ship, basically, because that'll probably mean that I've done something horribly wrong to get into that situation. But I don't want to drag this video on much longer. And it's a long trip back home. And again, I don't want to reveal my home system. So I think I'm going to end it here. I hope you've enjoyed this trip with me. A little less information than I wanted to give about my history, about my maturing in EVE, because when I started out, I only knew what a few basic ships were, and now, if you point me at a ship, I probably know what it is. I probably know what kind of damage it does, what weapons it's most likely using, what its defenses most likely are. There's very, very few ships in EVE that'll come up that I'll go, what kind of ship is that? But then I can actually figure out very quickly what kind of ship it is if I don't know. And I myself, and maybe I'll be able to do this someday, somehow, have a hangar of over 50 ships. My hangar is worth probably around 3.5 billion, and that's just for the hulls. That's not including everything that's attached to the ships. I'm not afraid to lose ships. I'm not afraid to lose ISK. I went from being, like most people, a pauper in the game, paying for it, and barely having, 100 million ISK, to I'm very close to 22 billion now. And that's not including my ships and everything that I got in my hangars and all the extra stuff I've got laying around in containers. So I'm fairly ISK rich, or EVE rich, even though I'm poor in real life. So I'm very well off for myself. I could buy several dreadnoughts or carriers if I wanted to, but I can't fly any. So, of course, I'm not going to. But when the time comes, I'll be able to not only buy a carrier, but I'll be able to fit it out properly. So, I'm looking forward to that happening someday. Maybe within the next year. You know, maybe. It is possible, I suppose, that I could have had a carrier right now if I focused on a specific type of ship, but I didn't. I spread my points around to fly up to the battle cruiser level of all races, and I can fly them all fairly well, and I've got all the support skills I need to put in what's known as Tech 2 of everything except for Minmatar guns. The Minmatar guns I haven't gotten Tech 2 in, but I've gotten Tech 2 everything else. So I'm a well-rounded character, but I'm not specialized. I'm more the jack of all trades versus somebody who specializes in a ship. So, anyways, like I said, I really didn't want to drag this on much longer, and here I am dragging it on longer. So, I really hope you've enjoyed this video as much as I've enjoyed talking about it and getting nostalgic about it. I hope you've enjoyed seeing these wrecks, these amazing internet digitally rendered hulks of some truly massive and impressive machines, and they're even more impressive when you get to see them intact and fighting, or even Titans just sitting around in a shielded area for them. They are truly a wonder to see when you see them the first time, and they're truly a wonder to see when you see them for the 100th time. And if you have any questions about Eve, or anything that you've said or might have seen in this game, please feel free to leave a comment or send me a message, and I will answer what I can for you. But other than that, this is going to be one big bugger. I am going to be signing out my 1-year celebration video for EVE Online. Thank you, CCP. Thank you, Test. Thank you, Brave Newbies and Hero Coalition, for everything that you did to help keep me in the game, to make it interesting and fun. And even though I've moved on to a small corporation and committing in the game what some people consider a serious crime of becoming a renter, the corporation I live with rents systems to be in rather than own them, which is about the only way you're going to get SOV nowadays, unless you're allowed to. But that all aside, I really hope that my next year in EVE will be as fun, as profitable, and as memory-filled as the first year has been. And you will know. You will know if it is, or if it isn't. There's going to be one big bug again. I'm going to be signing out. I'll see you next time.